Hi, VRC kids. I just wanted to spend a few minutes talking about this compare and contrast essay that you're going to have to do for your next assignment. You know, you've spent a lot of time working on your graphic organizer and working on your pre-writing sheets in order to start the bulk of this compare and contrast essay. Now, I know that you guys know this, but I just want to give you a little bit of a reminder that compare means to tell how two things are the same, and contrast means to tell how they're different. Kids are usually really good at being able to tell how two things are the same and how two things are different, but where they get into trouble is when they start having to write this essay, when they start having to have their ideas down on paper. So that's what I want to spend a few minutes talking about. I look at it, a compare and contrast essay, as sort of being like a sandwich. You have 4 paragraphs in your essay. You have your top bun, which is the introduction. That's the introductory paragraph, and it's what you used to get going on your lesson. And then you have your bottom bun right here, and that's your closing paragraph. And in your closing paragraph, you're basically revisiting some of the things that you said in your introductory paragraph and sort of wrapping up the whole thing. Then in the middle of your essay, you have 2 major parts for compare and contrast. The first part is sort of like the toppings on your sandwich, and that's the paragraph that compares the 2 items that you are taking a look at. And then your second part of the middle is your contrast. And you're going to write a paragraph that contrasts the 2 items. So in the introduction, in the top bun of your sandwich, the beginning, sometimes you'll hear people calling that your hook or your lead. So you want to say something in the beginning to grab the reader's attention, to make them want to read more. So your hook and lead could be a question. It could be a statement that is sort of interesting or sort of outside the box. But the other thing that needs to happen when you write a hook or a lead for your compare and contrast is you need to make sure that you cite the 2 things that you're comparing and contrasting. In this particular assignment for me, you have 2 sources of information that you're comparing and contrasting. So one source, both of your sources, source 1 and source 2, should be named in your beginning paragraph. And you should include the author and the titles for this part of the assignment. So when you write your introduction, I'm just going to recap again. You want to make sure that you have a hook or a lead that's going to be interesting, make your reader want to read more. But you also need to cite both sources in your first paragraph, including your authors and titles. Some kids are finding that they have 2 texts that are exactly the same, but the same title, but they're differentiating them by taking a look and calling one by one author's name and one by the other author's name. Now we get to these 2 middle paragraphs. We have the meat of our sandwich, and then we have whatever toppings go on the top. And each one of those paragraphs you've already really done the majority of the work for in your pre-writing paper. You know, you have already written sentences that compare. That's going to be your first middle paragraph. Then you've also written sentences that contrast. So that's going to be your second middle paragraph. The hardest part of the work for these has already been done. You just need to make sure that you put them together in a paragraph that flows, that makes sense, that has all of your ideas spelled out. this is also a good time for you to double check and make sure that you're going really deeply with your thinking. After you finish your two middle paragraphs, your paragraph that compares and your paragraph that contrasts, then you have that bottom bun of the sandwich, that closing paragraph. This is the one that's like the most difficult one for kids to write, and I'm not entirely sure why, because I think that they've spent so much time. One of the reasons I think is that they've spent so much time spelling out exactly what they want to say. Their introduction is something that they've been working on since, being able to write a good introduction is something you've been working on for a long time. But writing that good closing paragraph is really hard. You can revisit something that you asked in the first paragraph or something that you said in the first paragraph when you write the closing one. It's never okay to just write, so this is my essay about that's comparing and contrasting. That's not okay. But, you can revisit a topic that's from the very first paragraph because it's sort of wrapping everything up. The other thing that I'm asking kids to do when they write this closing paragraph is, again, make sure that, oops, I got that off of there, to make sure that you cite your sources. So again, you're going to go back to what you did in that first paragraph, and at some point you're going to make sure that you include the title and the author for each one of your sources. And that should probably wrap up your essay. If you have any questions, send me a message and I'll be glad to work with you on it. Thanks.